Welcome to the post-trade deadline edition of the Jon Krawczynski Show. He's Jon Krawczynski from The Athletic. I'm Jim Souhan from TalkNorth.com and the Star Tribune. We have a lot to talk about. We have a lot to talk about when it comes to what happened, what didn't happen, what might happen in the future. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studios, and we're presented by Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood. We'll tell you about our sponsors and everything else later on. John, I feel like we should start with what happened instead of what didn't happen. But then again, what didn't happen felt like it was the bigger story. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly start with what didn't happen just because there was so much discussion about Giannis and there was so much speculation. And I really do believe, and I know I was on the road with the team in Memphis and in Toronto, and you could tell that all of the rumors and all of the speculation was really weighing on some of the guys pretty heavily. When you're in the middle of the rumor mill is one thing, Jim, when you're just kind of your name is out there and stuff. But when you're in the middle of a Giannis Antetokounmpo rumor, when it's the story in the NBA, it is sort of all encompassing and it is hard to get away from. And so, yes, the Timberwolves were interested in adding Giannis Antetokounmpo. They were exploring all sorts of different options that they could try to pull off to make it happen should the Milwaukee Bucks give them the green light to really engage. But the real interesting part of that whole saga was we saw all week long how much chatter and conversation was happening in the media, including myself, but I think even more so nationally about the Timberwolves' chances and about them being front runners and about teaming up Giannis and Ant, and it was really sort of just high wattage speculation. I mean, it was hot for a while there, and I do think that a lot of fans were thinking that this was almost an inevitability. Certainly that he was going to get traded and perhaps to Minnesota, but through the whole process and kind of what I wrote on Monday about it was that the Timberwolves themselves internally had, along with other teams in the league, had a real skepticism that the Milwaukee Bucks were actually going to make a move when push came to shove, that they really actually did want to trade Giannis at the trade deadline, and they weren't going to wait until the summer to do it. And so while all of this, electricity was in the air in terms of the conversations nationally, internally and locally, it was much more muted because it was just like, we haven't gotten any conversations started with the Bucks. We've told them what we might be willing to do. And we've looked at what options are available for us to make other moves so we can get picks to get the Bucks something that they might want in a package for Giannis Antetokounmpo. But in the end, the Bucks never really said, okay, let's have real substantive conversations about getting this thing going. And so when Thursday came and went without any kind of Giannis deal, fans may have been surprised. Certainly players even may have been surprised that nothing happened. But I think that anyone who was really involved in trying to look at the landscape and gauge the market within the Timberwolves was not all that surprised at all that the Bucks did not pull the trigger on it.
What do you think was the best package the Wolves were willing to put together?
Yeah, so it's hard to kind of say exactly how far they would have went, because it is possible, Jim, that if the Bucks said to Tim Connolly and to Alex Rodriguez and Mark Lowry, hey, let's get a deal done. Let's go here. We want to do this. It's possible that they may have pushed to limits that we don't know about. But what I can gather is I do think that there were avenues explored with multi-team trades that would have had at least two of these three, or of these four, at least two of these four. Jaden McDaniels would have had to go. Like, there's no doubt about it. He was going to have to be in a Giannis deal because he had, I think, the most value and to the Bucks and to other teams in terms of trying to accumulate what you need to go. And then one more at least of Rudy Gobert, Julius Randle, Naz Reid to try and get more picks to go to get going to Milwaukee. And then on top of that, you probably have Rob Dillingham, you'd have Terrence Shannon, you'd have a lot of young guys kind of going all over the place as well. My guess is that only Jaden and maybe one other piece may have ended up in Milwaukee, and then all sorts of other players would have been flung all across the NBA map to try and just kind of get first round picks, second round picks to get to Milwaukee. What I think I feel comfortable in saying is that the Timberwolves did not want to part with Dante DiVincenzo in a deal, and they did not want to part with Johan Berenger. So there was a real hope that if they did get Giannis Antetokounmpo, that by the end of it, the perfect scenario or the ideal scenario was they had Ant, Naz, Dante DiVincenzo, Johan Berenger as the core of what was left with Giannis, and then other pieces, still there. So, in fairness to Milwaukee, they may have looked at that and said, look, that's just not good enough. Like, this is Giannis Antetokounmpo. And I think they said that to the Warriors, who were offering 4 first-round picks, and Kuminga and Draymond. They were saying that to Miami that was trying to get in it. There was not a deal out there that, to me, you look at and you say, oh, absolutely, you just do that in a heartbeat. But if they would have really engaged, could they have squeezed out Giannis, or could they squeeze out Julius, Jaden, Rudy, more picks, a whole bunch of things? It's possible, but I don't think it ever got to even close to that point where they were really constructing deals. This was all kind of theoretical and hypothetical, the world that the Wolves front office was living in, trying to just come up with any kind of avenues to see if the door opened for Giannis.
I'm almost relieved they didn't do a deal, because I think they would have had to trade 2 or 3 of their starting 6. They would have had no bench. They would have had no depth. They would have had to win now to justify the deal, and they'd be relying on a guy with calf problems who's 34 years old, and who last
31,
time he got
31.
Oh, I'm sorry, 31.
Yep.
And the last time he played paired with a superstar on a star-heavy lineup, it didn't work out very well.
Yeah, I think so. There's definitely concerns that were viable for this, as the Timberwolves were looking at it, as Timberwolves fans were looking at it. In terms, you're right, Jim. One is he's 31 years old. He's getting older. He's a big guy, so you wonder how he's going to age. He takes really good care of his body. So I do think that soft tissue injuries have been an issue for him the last several years, and so his ability to stay healthy would have been a concern. Another concern in the immediate would have been, there was a likelihood that you would have to liquidate your depth to the degree that this year would have been kind of a wash. And then you would go into this summer with Giannis and Ant, and then just try and build around them and really gear up for a run at a title next season. Like, that's entirely possible. And do you want to essentially punt on this year, to try and make that happen? So that would have been a risk. And then, I did sense within the fan base, and I do think also within the organization, some, as they weighed all of this, that, as Wednesday night went into Thursday morning, and there was still a lot of chatter about this possibly happening, there was a bit of nervousness and trepidation about, hey, we've had Jaden McDaniels and Naz Reid for 6-7 years. Like, we really love the Jaden, Naz, Ant core, and we want to see that kind of grow. That's, I think, a fair thing for fans and a fair thing for the organization as well. And there was nervousness about, man, do we really want to part with Jaden McDaniels? He's playing great right now. He looks fantastic. He handled the rumors incredibly well, and just kept on going. And so this was not a slam dunk thing for the Timberwolves, where if you get Giannis, do you just do it, move heaven and earth to do it, and then build forward? We have seen in the past a lot of these lopsided deals don't work out. The Kevin Durant deal in Phoenix didn't work out very well. Like there's plenty of them that you look at and you say, yeah, but now more than ever, depth is really important. And so, what does that look like? And so, yeah, there was a lot of questioning about, is this the right thing to do? And I do think that there is some sense of relief now going into the rest of the final 30 games of this season. Like, okay, like there is no this isn't a major change in the roster. We're good here. Let's just keep going and see what happens. I think that's fair to say that, would it all have changed? I do wonder, Jim. Like I told some people, like, and we were talking, like, yes, there's nervousness, but the first time that Giannis is introduced at Target Center and he puts up 34, 13, and 9, like, are you gonna like change that a little bit? It's possible, but there were real life and real justifiable concerns about doing a deal like this. And I do think that there is some sense of relief that, you know what, we like this team. It's been a little up and down, but let's just really see what you can get out of this with another nice piece that they were able to add in Ayo Dosunmu.
And let's talk about that here in a second. I will say this too. The modern athlete is very well coached, and they almost all of them talk about, oh, love my teammates, love my team, love my city. And sometimes it's just it's the best thing to say. It's just a PR strategy. I love my teammates. And then they go to the next place, and guess what? They love their teammates. They might even rip the place they were at before. Yeah. I think what is legitimate is that Ant, Jaden, and Naz are really close, and that's something you might not want to mess with.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a real factor as well. I mean, certainly I believe that Anthony Edwards was intrigued about playing with Giannis, but I also think conflicted because, you understand what that means. If you want to play with Giannis, it means you're saying goodbye to Jaden for sure. It might mean you're saying goodbye to Naz or Julius or Rudy, who all have been big parts of this team being successful over the last year and a half. But yeah, particularly Jaden and Naz, and the relationship that they have, they've been together all for 6 years. And that is a unique thing in the NBA to have that longevity. And really over the last week or so, every time Ant had a chance to sing Jaden's praises, he did. And I think that there was a little bit of kind of messaging there to not to the organization to say, don't do this, but really to Jaden to say, hey man, I got your back. I love you. I want to be here with you. And I think that's an important part of this, and seeing those three being able to take things forward is just a really kind of cool thing to continue. I think that's something rare in this league, and I'm excited to watch how that works out.
So let's talk about the trade they did do, which I actually liked. First, we want to thank Aquarius Home Services.
Scott for Aquarius, your authorized independent Connecticut dealer. It's 2026 and time to fix your problem water. Time to enjoy spotless dishes, softer skin, cleaner laundry, and say goodbye to funny taste and odors. Upgrade today and enjoy no payments and no interest for 6 months on a new high-efficiency Connecticut water treatment system. Schedule your free water test at AquariusHomeservices.com. Financing based on credit approval. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended.
At Royal Credit Union, we believe in banking with purpose. That's why we're here for you and your community with people-first service, local support, and all the accounts and loans you need to help reach your financial goals. As a not-for-profit cooperative, everything we do benefits the people and communities we serve, because Royal isn't just where you bank, it's where you belong. Experience the Royal Credit Union difference and learn more at rcu.org/royal support. Insured by NCUA. Loans subject to credit approval. Equal credit opportunity.
John, tell us about our favorite Lexus dealer.
If you're in the market for a new luxury vehicle, look no further than our good friend Charlie Swanson at Lexus. Whether you're on the west or the east side of the Twin Cities, they've got you covered with two great locations, Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. Check out the all-new Lexus TX, a spacious SUV with 3 rows of seating and plenty of room for all your gear. Head over to lexusofwayzata.com or lexusofmaplewood.com for details and to find your next ride today.
Thanks also to longtime sponsor, really our original sponsor, TSR Injury Law. They've been with us forever. It's been a great partnership. We trust them. If Jai and I ever needed an injury attorney, I guarantee you we would be calling 612-TSR-TIME, 612-TSR-TIME. You know the billboards, you know the ads. We know the people. We trust them. We like them. And we're very grateful for the partnership we've had with them. 612-TSR-TIME, a true Minnesota company that will help you out if you need it. So tell us about the deal that did go down.
Yeah, so the Wolves spent much of the trade deadline really kind of monitoring the Giannis thing and understanding that it was hard to make other moves if you were in play for Giannis. You didn't want to give up any assets that could help you get a Giannis deal done. But Thursday morning comes along, and I think that there was a realization pretty early in the morning that they could not get any sort of deal done with Giannis. Like that ship has sailed, and that Milwaukee was going to hold on to him. So Tim Connolly very quickly pivoted and went to Chicago to get Ayo Dosunmu. For my money, when you look at the role players that were available to them, including Kobe White, including some of the other, anything like a Quentin Grimes, like a Trey Jones, Tyus Jones, and any of those guys, Ben Mathurin. You look at them. I think that Ayo Dosunmu fits what they need better than any of the other ones. He is an energy guy. This is a team that sometimes plays with low energy. And he is a 45% 3-point shooter. He is a transition player, gets out and runs, really pushes the pace. He's a combo guard. I don't think he's a true point guard type, but he's a combo guard that can handle the ball. And he has a rugged defensive mindset. He's not Nickeil Alexander-Walker as a top flight defender, but he is a guy who will get out and will challenge guys and will play and will kind of stick his nose in there. And on a team that wants to play physically, that wants to really get into you, he is a guy that can do that. To land Ayo Dosunmu, he was one of my favorite guys that was available on the market. And so I thought it was a great move by Connolly. We can talk certainly about the price that he had to pay for him. But just the player himself, and when you talk to people in Chicago, they rave about him as a person, as a leader, as a locker room guy, as a fan favorite for just the sweat equity that he puts into every game. So I just thought that to be able to move off of a big splash like Giannis, but then still get a player like Ayo Dosunmu, I thought it was just essential for what this team needed to kind of fortify itself and give them something else off the bench over these last 20 games over these last 30 games of the season.
Yeah, I love the move. I think he's a plug and play player. I think he'll fit in perfectly here. Everything you said, I echo. And Julian Phillips, is he a project or more of a financial throw-in?
Yeah, I mean, partly I think a financial throw-in. There is some intrigue about he's athletic. He's a young guy. I do think he could play some defense as well. But certainly, when you look at the rotations that Chris Finch uses, I don't anticipate him being in the mix at all. That said, a couple years ago, they made a trade for Mike Conley and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and he said, this guy's just a throw-in. Who cares? And then he turned into something. That does not mean that's going to happen here with Julian Phillips, but I'm intrigued because he does have some athletic traits and just a good frame as a small forward type that they don't have a whole lot of on this roster. So we'll see how he develops, but as of right now, I don't think that there's immediate plans for him to be a regular contributor on this roster.
Dillingham departing, is there a chance that the Wolves will regret this? I mean, it's a very easy move to make right now. Do you think down the line Dillingham has a chance to turn into something?
I hope so, Jim, is what the way I'm going to put it. Right now, as it stands, it just looks like Tim Connolly had a miss there. When you look at what he paid to get the 8th overall pick, an unprotected first round pick and a first round swap, 2030 and 2031, to go up and get Rob Dillingham. He really likes, Tim Connolly really does like undersized, shifty, bucket-getting guards. Like, he loves Bones Highland. Bones is turning into a good player here, but he kind of had to go through the ringer of the league before he kind of really got established. And in a similar fashion, he gets Rob Dillingham, and then they make the trade for Dante DiVincenzo and Julius Randle after that to take really any real minutes away. But if there's a regret that the Wolves have, they paid too much for Rob Dillingham, an undersized guard in a league where those are, going further and further extinct. But also, I do think that there were probably things that could have been done to help Rob Dillingham develop a little bit more. And it remains a real possibility, Jim, that he's just a miss altogether in terms of a talent that did not pan out. They really, they misread their scouting reports on him. They missed the scouting, and it could be that he just is one of those busts that happens all the time in the league. But one thing that I wish could have gone differently here is that it's clear by the end that Rob Dillingham had zero confidence. Like, he would get into a game here and there, and was always looking over his shoulder. When am I gonna get pulled? Like, if I miss this shot, I'm out. He played so tentatively and so hesitantly, and you could just see that the way that he was brought along, the mental part of the game was the worst part for him here. And this was a really difficult position for him to come into, because he entered a team that wants to win and is like saying, we want to go to the finals. And it's hard to learn on the job there. I think what he needed and what he will get in Chicago, he needed to play for the Washington Wizards or the Chicago Bulls and just play 25 minutes a night, make a bunch of mistakes. Don't get pulled, as soon as something goes wrong. And then I think there's a chance that he can be a rotation player in this league. I do think that. I just don't think it was going to happen here. And the mix with Chris Finch was just not the right mix. And so, do I foresee him going to Chicago and just becoming a star? No, I don't. I don't think that at least immediately that's ready to happen. But I do see a scenario where he just goes and plays, and then by the end of the season, you're looking at it and saying, yeah, there's something here to keep going with. And so, it was just unfortunate that the timing and the circumstances of this worked as they did for Rob Dillingham. Had he been on any Wolves team pre-Anthony Edwards, he would have played a ton, and maybe it would have changed his path. But he came to a team that is ready to roll right now, and there just wasn't time to be able to let him learn on the job. And so now they are essentially paying to get off of him, and it's a rough process in that. When you look at what the Wolves did to get Rob Dillingham, and then what they had to do to get off of him, just not great. There's just no other way to put it. But at least they did eventually turn him into a player that should very much help them down the stretch and in the playoffs this season. And I think that making that move now rather than waiting to the summer when he would have had almost zero value was about as well as they could handle a bad situation with Rob Dillingham.
Right. Let's talk about Mike Connolly next. First, tell us about True Vision Institute.
True Vision Institute in Bloomington. Go to truevision.com to set up your free consultation. If you are watching this on video, like we have been doing lately, you see I have no glasses. For years and years, I wore glasses and contacts, and being able to go to True Vision, have the LASIK surgery, have them take care of me the way that it did, it just made me kind of sheepish at the end. It's like, why did I not do this 10 years ago, 15 years ago? And we're going on 2 years now with LASIK surgery from True Vision. I still see just perfectly clear. My life is so much easier, and your life will be easier too if you go to truevision.com, set up their consultation, go in and just soak in the knowledge. There's no pressure. They will help you find the right vision correction for your needs that will fit your life, that will help you out the best. So go to truevision.com, go visit the good folks at True Vision in Bloomington.
And tell us about our friend, Mr. Princeton.
Princeton's Liquors in Maple Grove is the place to go for the best selection of craft beer and bourbon in the metro area. Go to Princeton's Liquors. They have been in the liquor selling business for ever and ever in the North Metro. They are fixtures in this community. We love to support community companies that are invested in here, and Princeton's Liquors is not only invested in this Twin Cities community, but invested in the basketball community. Bill Princeton was an intern with the Timberwolves and Lynx back around the turn of the century. He wore the crunch costume in the summertime. He is a big basketball fan as well. But you go into Princeton's Liquors, they have beer, they have wine, they have spirits, they have THC seltzers and gummies, whatever you need. They have it at Princeton's Liquors in Maple Grove.
Thanks also to Shepherd Goods and Lamb Chops clothing line, which also sponsors a Twitter question we'll do at the end of this show.
SGLambchops.com is the place to go. Use the promo code JONK20 for 20% off anything you get at Lamb Chops. It is ultra comfortable, ultra high quality, casual wear, street wear. We're talking hoodies, we're talking t-shirts, hats, sweaters, pants, shorts, just anything that you could want. You put a piece of Lamb Chops clothing on, you can feel the difference in what you're wearing. It lasts super long. It is super stylish. You can wear it out on the town in the North Loop on a Friday night. You can wear it to a Timberwolves game and fit right in with literally hundreds of Timberwolves fans that are wearing Lamb Chops at Target Center. And you can also wear it lounging around the house if you're just kicking back, watching TV, taking in a movie on a weekend or hanging out. So it is super versatile, and it was affordable and high quality. Go to SGLambchops.com. Use the promo code JONK20 for 20% off anything you get at Lamb Chops.
So when do the Wolves bring back Mike Conley?
I think it's coming soon. They initially, Jim, in their early negotiations about a trade with Detroit and Chicago, it was a 3-team deal. There was hope on the Wolves' end that they could make it into 2 separate trades right off the bat, where Conley goes to Detroit, then Conley gets traded to Chicago, then he gets bought out and could come back to Minnesota. That did not happen, did not materialize that way. It just became 1 3-team deal. But kind of to their good fortune, he gets to Chicago, Mike Conley does, and then the Bulls package him with Kobe White to go to Charlotte and get Colin Sexton. And so because Mike Conley was traded now twice since the Wolves traded him, he is free to re-sign with the Wolves. They have 2 open roster spots, and exactly when something happens, I'm not sure. I would imagine it's going to be in the coming days here, but I would expect that Mike Conley is going to be back in a Wolves uniform without technically ever having really left. And so that will be, good for the Wolves. They love Mike Conley. They love having him in that locker room. Good for Chris Finch. He's kind of a safety blanket, but it will be interesting to see how the role evolves, because now that you have Ayo Dosunmu, he's going to be getting a lot of those Mike Conley minutes. And I think Bones Highland is showing that he deserves minutes as well. And so I think it will be incumbent upon Chris Finch to use Mike Conley very strategically, like in games where you just really need a ball handler, in spots where you just are turning the ball over too much and you need some help that way. Maybe where you need a chase defender to chase somebody, a shooter around screens. But he's going to have to. He cannot be playing him, 18, 20 minutes a night anymore. There's just not going to be that available.
And the bench is really interesting now. So, DeSumo is your number 7. I guess Bones is probably your number 8. You have Shannon coming back, I'm assuming, at some point here. Clark gives you defensive value, hasn't been very good offensively. You want to get Berenger involved. It's a lot of interesting people to have to manage.
It is. And I can see two ways of this going here, Jim. I could see them trying harder, which I do believe. I think Chris Finch has to find ways to get Johan Berenger on the floor more. I was really surprised that he didn't play in Toronto. I thought he should have played in Memphis on a low energy night. And just get him out there and playing. I think that's a necessary thing. Then you do look at keeping Bones at some decent minutes. You look at Jalen Clark. You look at this rotation could expand to 9.5, and then you kind of toggle what you need on a nightly basis with that ninth and a half guy, or Chris Finch could really kind of more gravitate to what he did last year with a top 8, and now you go with your starting 5, and you go Bones, and you go Io, and you go Nas, and they get all of the minutes. And that typically seems to be what Finch prefers, is a tighter rotation with guys who can play longer and get a better feel for the game that way. But I will be interested to see over the next 15 to 20 games, kind of how he experiments and how he plays with things and what he ends up with, because there's two ways to do it, and we've seen him do it before, but almost always with kind of an 8-man rotation, with those 3 bench guys all getting heavy minutes. That's what he seems to prefer.
A lot of interesting deals around the league, but it doesn't feel like any of the teams that the Wolves are chasing really improved themselves much. And now you have SGA out for a little bit. Nikola Jokic keeps dealing with a knee injury. I mean, it feels like now that we're past talking about Giannis, what we're talking about is there's still a really good seed in the offing for this team, especially if Ant's going to continue to play in the fourth quarter the way he's been playing lately.
Yeah, I really believe it, Jim. There was a time this week right after the Conley trade where it was okay, what else is coming? And is it possible that this team is just going to cut salary? And that's the only move that they're going to make. And you're looking at it and just say, hey, this isn't really kind of, going the way that you thought it would go. But to their credit, to Tim Connolly's credit, to Mark Lori, Alex Rodriguez, they worked through and they got to a point where Ayo Dosunmu was brought in, because this team, I really believe, Jim, deserved to be invested in and to make a move to help improve what was a glaring weakness. The bench has been a glaring weakness all year long. If Naz Reid isn't scoring big, they're in real trouble. And then you hope on you get a good Bones night, here and there to help you. But they needed another player there, another reliable guy. Mike Conley is not doing that. Jalen Clark is not doing that. Terrence Shannon has been hurt and has not been doing it. So this team, with the way that they've played, with beating San Antonio and Oklahoma City and New York and Boston and Cleveland, they've shown that they can play with some of the best teams in the league. And this also, to your point, Jim, the West is still open. OKC looks mortal now. Denver just gets injury after injury, and it's unbelievable what they've endured. Houston has not clicked exactly right, and they have weaknesses. The Lakers just getting Austin Reeves back helps a lot, but they have defensive deficiencies. Every team in the league, San Antonio is really, really young. Every team in the league in this conference looks beatable right now. And so the Wolves did really well, I think, to say there is an opportunity here, and we're not going to sell off. We're going to improve this roster. and we're going to make a run at this thing. And the way that Ant is playing, I mean, he's reaching MVP conversation for sure. And I mean, what he did in the fourth quarter against Toronto is like, you look at that and you say, this guy deserves us doing everything we can to surround him with enough talent to give him a shot. Because once you get into the playoffs, Anthony Edwards is gold. And so I really do think it was important that they made a move, that they said, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to get then they got a player that just fits beautifully with what they're doing. And so I do think the optimism should be high right now. They usually start playing well right around this time of year. Like that's just the way that it goes. The schedule lightens up in February some. And so I think that the opportunity is there for them to say, we can get into the playoffs as a home court advantage team. And once we're in there with Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels and Julius Randle and Rudy Gobert, and now a bench that is a little deeper, we can beat anyone. And they can also lose to anyone, but getting Ayo Dosunmu says we're plugging one hole that we had. And I think it was just so important.
So after they traded Connolly and before they made the corresponding deal, they were lined up to save some money. Where are they now? And do you think finances are a concern for Lauren Rodriguez, or they just care about winning at all costs?
Well, I mean, I do think so. Certainly the Conley deal helped them save a lot of money. So they saved, I think, right around $20 million in total when you factor in the luxury tax. And then he comes back on now a league minimum deal. And so essentially Charlotte is paying a lot of what he was making. They had plenty of cap space, so they could do that. And so when you look at how they are operating, yes, I do think that they are being careful with what they spend. And that that financially there are some components that are coming into play. What I will also say is they also had an opportunity at the trade deadline. They could have just dumped Rob Dillingham and been under the out of the luxury tax entirely. And then they would have received money from the league rather than having to pay in to the league. They chose at the end to not do that by making the Dosunmu deal and moving Leonard Miller and Rob Dillingham for Ayo Dosunmu. They are still in the tax, and so there is some investment there. They did not make just what would have been a completely financially motivated move by just kind of carving the payroll down and getting themselves in a position to be revenue receivers rather than revenue generators. And so when you look at the results of that, you say, okay, good job. Like, this is an ownership group that said they were going to be super aggressive in spending, that they were not worried about the luxury tax. And they ultimately got to a point where that their actions backed up their words. But I do think that they're, as any organization does, like they went through sort of a lot of scenarios and tried to look at the landscape and probably did consider other avenues that would have made it much easier on them financially. And ultimately they decided not to do that. So that's a good thing, especially, Jim, in a landscape right now where this is their first trade deadline as owners. And if they would have cut salary, that probably would not have been, a great look. They did not do that. Like, they added. So that was a good thing. And then, Wolves fans have been complaining about the ticket price increases. There have been changes and cuts to the business side. And so this was a real opportunity for Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez to reinvest in the team. And I think it was important that they did that, and they ended up doing that. So that was a good thing.
What are the Clippers thinking? They were playing as well as anybody, and Kawhi's healthy and playing great, and then they blow it up. I felt like they were headed toward a nice seed and being a real problem in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think what really happened, Jim, was that they ultimately decided they did not want to sign James Harden to a longer-term deal after this season. And when you're in the James Harden business and you let him know that, he's out. Like there's no option. And so if you're going to trade James Harden, now what does that mean for the rest of your team? And so, but I'm still a little surprised because they still did get Darius Garland back. They got a good player back for him. He's injured. He's kind of going through things. So maybe they just don't anticipate he's going to get a lot. He's going to be able to contribute as much this season. But then to trade Zubats as well, now, and they don't have their pick. Like it's going to Oklahoma City. So tanking doesn't really help them all that much. But I just basically think that their hand was forced a little bit because they did not want to commit long-term to James Harden. And if you don't do that, James Harden's going to make life very difficult for you. And so they ultimately had to make that move and send him to Cleveland. And now they are in a very difficult spot as, All-Star Weekend comes to Intuit Dome in a couple of weeks here. So I do think that there might be a little relief though around the rest of the West because the Clippers were playing great. And if they fall off, that's one less team to worry about. And, for any of those like seeded 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like that really does help a lot.
One rumor to run by you, then we're going to do the Twitter question and wrap up. Thank you to everyone who listens. Thanks to all of our sponsors. Thanks to Alex Haugen, our producer at TalkNorth.com, who's handling the show. It's just a stupid internet rumor I thought I'd run by you. I heard that did Kevin Durant nix a deal to the Timberwolves because he didn't want to play for Chris Finch?
No. Okay. I don't know where that came from, honestly.
I won't say where it came from. Yeah. It had just enough. I didn't think it was true, but I thought it was worth asking you.
Yeah, I would say like, look, I was in deep on all of those conversations. I think we, at The Athletic may have been the first to report really kind of the full substance of those conversations and how close it did get at the February trade deadline last year for to bring Kevin Durant here. I mean, I'm telling you, Jim, like there are people within the organization who thought that deal was really going to get done, and it ultimately didn't at the last minute. And then there was some sort of confusion, I would say is probably the right word to use, in terms of this summer when they revisited and went back and said, hey, maybe there is a deal to be done with Kevin Durant right now. And KD just decided at that point that Minnesota was not a spot he wanted to be in. But I've never heard one bit from Kevin Durant, from his group, from the Timberwolves, that any questions about Chris Finch were factoring into his decision. I think he really wanted to go back and play in Texas. And the Houston Rockets are a really competitive team. He went to college at Texas. He really liked it there.
No state taxes.
No state tax is a huge thing. So and the weather, of course. Like I've heard the weather brought up a lot around KD, and he just wasn't feeling that part of it as well. I think like in last February he could have said, yeah, I'm cool with coming here for it'll be cold for a month and a half, and then we'll be in the playoffs and it'll be fine and I'll just deal with it. But I think the prospect of looking at it for a full season, or really for the next couple of years, it just he changed his mind. He is a mercurial dude. Like he kind of. It's sometimes hard to get a read on exactly where he's thinking, but there was no point in those discussions that I hear that, he doesn't really want to play for Chris Finch. And, I will also say, like, in this NBA, if you think that you can get a big time star to pair with your other big time star, and that big time star says, I don't want to play for that coach, there's a lot of organization. I'm not saying it's the Timberwolves. There's a lot of organizations say, you know what, Chris Finch, thanks for everything you've done for us. We're going to move on and we're going to bring Kevin Durant in here. So none of that came up. None of that even remotely got on my radar. So I don't really put a whole lot of stock in that.
I appreciate you clearing that up. I thought that was the case, but I knew you would have a clear answer to it. Let's do our Twitter question of the day.
Yeah, I'm just going to comb right through here quick. Again, go to sglambchops.com. Use the promo code JONK20 for 20% off anything that you can get at Lamb Chops. And this one comes from Scoot. And what's the buyout market look like, and what do we expect the Wolves to prioritize position-wise while filling this roster? As we said, I would expect that Mike Conley would come back for one of those spots. It is possible, Jim, that I think they will look at the buyout market and see if there's another player out there that they think could help them. And if there is, I do think that you look at possibly adding someone. Cam Thomas was just cut by the Nets. I don't think that there is a super kind of thirst for him within this organization, but he's a volume scorer. I mean, he killed the Wolves in target center earlier this season. He is, from a personality standpoint, I'm not sure that he's a great fit here, but he's a big name with real pedigree. There's going to be other names that come out there. It's possible DeMar DeRozan becomes available. It's possible several. Chris Middleton is another one that you could look at. So
how about Ball?
Lonzo Ball, yeah, absolutely a possibility, but I worry about his injuries. Here's one thing I will say about the buyout market, though. Every single year, some very big name with a good resume, long history, hits the buyout market, and Team A misses out on him. And how could we miss out on him? And Team B gets him. Oh my gosh, like this is the missing piece. Like Gordon Hayward, a million guys that have gone out there, and you look at it, and there's a big graphic on ESPN. Look at Anthony Edwards and this guy. Oh my gosh, the West is on notice. And most of the time, that buyout guy plays a little bit, but is not exactly the guy that's swinging a championship in the favor of the team that gets him. Now, I do think personally that Cam Thomas could be impactful somewhere. DeMar DeRozan could be impactful somewhere. There's a few other guys that could be, but I would say temper your enthusiasm just a little bit, because those guys usually come in, they play a little bit, and then they're watching in the playoffs. So we'll see about all that, but I do think that the Timberwolves could be active and could add another person outside of Mike Conley if they feel like that person has a skill set that they really need.
Good stuff, John. Thanks to sglaptops.com for the Twitter question. Thanks to all of our sponsors who make all this possible. And I think we have a new name for the show. Temper your enthusiasm.
It's just that, doesn't that just get you going? Doesn't that just make you really want to do it? Yeah.
Yes. Good stuff, John. Thank you. Thanks to Alex Haugen. We'll talk to you all next week.